Is it too late to talk about Leagues Cup? Probably. But after dropping one of my most controversial videos in my 3 years on this site, I think I warrant the opportunity to look back at Leagues Cup and express how I view this tournament now that we've seen a full edition of it. I'd say my under the microscope video was pretty harsh, and there are quite a few of you who let me know that. But even though yes, at some points I was really critical of the prospect of Leagues Cup, I was still looking forward to watching it play out and attending multiple matches for the tournament. So yes, I was a critic, but I think the important part is that I was ready to see what this new experiment brought to the table. With that being said, I leave Leagues Cup with a favorable outlook. Although there were of course some hiccups and things I'd want to see improve for the future. So today I present you with the good, the bad, and the ugly of Leagues Cup 2023. I think the best place to start covering what we've seen over the past month is that it was extremely entertaining. With Leagues Cup pausing the MLS season, this felt like a break or a vacation away from the monotonous summer schedule of the MLS regular season. It was something to look forward to and something that you could see the end goal of. And what I mean by that is, because it was set up like a World Cup tournament, you could visualize how your club could reach the final. You could anticipate the group, see the knockout bracket, and imagine winning it all. This was a tournament perfect for the summer, when maybe supporters are becoming uninterested in the league, whether that's because their club has been miserable to watch, or they were in a bad run of form, or you felt like your regular season campaign was already over. Summertime in MLS is when we start to see the biggest drop in viewership, because you're no longer at the beginning of the season when everything's new, but you're also not quite at the playoffs just yet. The fact that MLS was able to take this lull in attention and absolutely crank it up to 100 to where everyone was watching this league is a masterclass by the organizers. Add on top of that the amount of goals we were seeing, the level of play on the field, and of course Messi, who we're going to talk about later. Leagues Cup was a must watch. Overall, Leagues Cup was a great way to break up the year from an MLS perspective, and it made the competition feel that much bigger. Along with that, the game schedule was exactly like a World Cup summer, where almost every single day there were matchups to watch. There's nothing like having back-to-back nights where you can just sit back, relax, and watch some domestic footy. And once it was a new tournament with no real guidelines on how it was supposed to play out, I was able to just consume the content without having to be bought in 100% of the time. Everything felt catered to MLS, to the point where sometimes it felt like this was just an MLS tournament that Liga MX happened to get an invite to, which honestly doesn't seem too off from reality. The first issue that created this feeling was the complete unbalanced quantity of MLS clubs compared to Liga MX. I felt this way before the tournament, and I still feel this way after. I get that it's just the reality of having all 47 clubs from both leagues take part, and obviously with MLS's single entity structure, you end up with 29 MLS clubs compared to Liga MX's 18. It just doesn't make it feel fair, and it doesn't make it feel like it's a competition between these two leagues. Personally, although I get the approach that has been taken, I feel like clubs should earn a spot in the tournament. Say the top 18 clubs and all the Liga MX clubs make the group stage, or the top 20, or so on and so on. There just needs to be a better way at balancing the participants. Along with that, the branding around the tournament was exactly the same as the MLS branding. For this, I'm considering the Apple TV broadcast package, the score box, the graphics, the production. It all felt the exact same as MLS. Once again, just an MLS production with Liga MX clubs thrown in. And to take this one step further, the ball itself that was used for the competition, it was just this year's MLS ball with the Leagues Cup logo slapped on it. Like, come on. Give us a separate ball or something and stop taking these shortcuts. I get that this is a very small issue to take offense to, but I think it's just a microcosm of a bigger issue. The whole competition felt MLS first, Liga MX second. MLS is going to do the heavy lifting with the branding, broadcasting, etc. And Liga MX, you're just going to tag along. Let's stick with that notion of giving Liga MX the shaft in this tournament and focus on maybe the biggest issue Leagues Cup had, which was scheduling every single game in the United States and forcing these Mexican clubs to be on the road for weeks on end, providing subpar facilities and pausing their season before it even really started. In my opinion, to really make this competition reach its full potential, we need to see games played in Mexico. I understand that it's easier and cheaper to host everything in the United States, but without involving Mexico in the hosting process, you not only kill off some of the amazing environments that are available, but it's also a kick in the face to the Mexican supporters. If you want to reach the largest audience, restricting a whole country from having their games in their own backyard is doing just the opposite. You can't expect these Mexican supporters to care about a tournament that the majority of them cannot attend. And then when your tournament cuts off Liga MX's domestic season after only 3 games have been played, I totally understand why there's a large contingency of Liga MX fans that don't have any interest in Leagues Cup. So when you add in the fact you're stopping their season so early on, and then you're forcing them to be nomads in the United States, the least you can do is provide reliable travel and adequate facilities, but not even that was happening. After Leon's first match of the tournament in Vancouver, an error with the Leagues Cup affiliated airline left the whole team stranded at the airport, sleeping on the floor, the chairs, or anywhere they could find. Along with that, because of the packed schedule, Leon were expected to play the next night without being able to get settled or train before the match. Now, luckily, Leagues Cup did postpone this match to the following day, but this type of issue is unacceptable. As for the facilities in question, we can only listen to what we've been told, and from what Monterrey's president had to say, not even the hotel situation was up to par. In general, there was a slew of logistic errors for Liga MX, and when you're already making it difficult for them in the first place, these types of problems ruin a lot of credibility. Messi. That's it. Messi. Let alone a good part of this tournament, this was the great part. Inter Miami signing Messi and making his debut in the first game of Leagues Cup was a perfect starting point for this tournament. All eyes from around the world were on this game, and even though it had nothing to do with Leagues Cup and everything to do with Lionel Messi, it worked out perfectly. And on top of that, Messi subbing into that game and scoring a game-winning free kick in the last minutes, it was everything we could have hoped for. Messi was already going to change how football was viewed here in the United States, but the fact that Leagues Cup was able to benefit off of Messi's arrival so much was even better. Every match with Messi was a must-watch, and he did his part in playing up that entertainment factor. Add in the fact Miami rode that momentum all the way to the final, it couldn't have worked out better. Messi created a lot of the hype for Leagues Cup on his own, and if he doesn't start this tournament with such a bang, I'm not sure we look back on it with so much admiration. Back to the venue situation, here's an issue you probably would only understand if you actually attended any Leagues Cup games. In my case, I was able to attend Philadelphia Union's first game of the tournament against Tijuana, as well as almost every home game for the Columbus Crew. And in those experiences, something felt very off, because under this Leagues Cup branding, every single match was considered a neutral site, whether the home team was in their own stadium or not. All of the branding, the music, the traditions for each individual club felt set aside in order to push this neutral venue idea. In my case, it was most notable for the Crew games I attended, because I know how they were supposed to be. When the players walk out, the Nordeca sings Wise Men, but in each of their games for Leagues Cup, all of which were at home, the Wise Men tradition was swept aside and replaced with awkward walkout introductions and certain Leagues Cup branded music blasting through the speakers. Now, I can't talk about experiences at other stadiums, but my point is, if you're gonna cede the hosting rights, let those clubs have their typical home game traditions and don't go that extra mile in order to pump in branded music in order to create a false neutral venue feel. The attendance was pretty spotty all around, which is something I could see before the tournament even started. Of course, when the big teams play, you'll get a good turnout. Club America showed up, as well as some of the other Gigantes, and of course, any games involving Messi and Miami were absolutely packed. But the issues came up when you had 2 MLS sides, much like what we saw in games like Dallas vs Charlotte, LA vs Vancouver, and so many more. Even worse, when 2 Mexican teams played each other at their neutral venues, it was just straight empty. This photo is from kickoff of FC Juarez vs Mazatlan. Even when you look into the later rounds of the tournament, if it didn't involve Messi, the numbers weren't that great, as seen from the semi-final of LAFC vs Monterrey. I'll give the benefit of the doubt that it's a new tournament, so maybe people don't care a lot just yet, but these images and some of the numbers we saw throughout Leagues Cup were pretty tough. Every single club seemed to really care about these games. There was a thought in my head that maybe the players wouldn't rise to the occasion, but that was quickly out of the question. I feel like every game we had beef between opposing clubs. Nobody went down easy, and that's all you can expect from Liga MX versus MLS. The play wasn't dry, the players had a sense of urgency, and the clubs wanted to advance. Along with this, I really enjoyed that the games went straight to penalties, especially with the congested schedule. I think this helped the players, but it also brought a lot more tension to the competition. When games were ending in a draw, you knew you wouldn't have to sit through that 30 minutes of extra time, and instead the pressure was going to ensue. I think this tournament brought a wealth of penalty moments, from Tigres' Nahul Guzman pulling off the weirdest stunts I've ever seen to endless shootouts, all the way to what we saw at the end of the Club America Nashville game. All around, Leagues Cup brought some unforgettable moments, and I think all of that comes from how these matches were set up and the players' desire to perform. The patches, the stupid Leagues Cup patches. Why is it that in every continental competition, nobody can figure out how to put patches on correctly and not have them fall off? Every single game, we had these floppy Leagues Cup patches, to the point some players were just ripping them off during the match. I don't know what it is, but someone needs to rework the materials that we're using in those patches. And while we're talking about trivial grievances, let's take a second to talk about the Leagues Cup trophy. First off, that thing is huge for no reason. And second, it's gotta be the weirdest shape ever. It just doesn't look like a valuable prize. It looks like some cheap metal that someone has bent into this awkward shape. And then when you look at that awful engraving for the champion, it only gets worse. From MLS versus MLS to Liga MX versus MLS, I don't know if I've seen as many supporter-related issues as I saw during Leagues Cup. The amount of objects being thrown onto the field and the amount of fans getting onto the pitch was absolutely unacceptable. Really, for this, I'm looking at Nashville versus Club America, where literally dozens of fans rushed the field at the end of the match, to the point where the Nashville Police Department detained 18 individuals for rushing the pitch, in which it is stated that the majority, if not all the people detained, were Club America supporters. If you're going to host games in the United States, you have to be sure the stadiums are correctly staffed with security. And for my last point, I want to end off on a high note, which is that Leagues Cup ended in the best way possible. Miami versus Nashville felt huge. The whole game resembled what Leagues Cup was like during the entire month. The teams cared, the game was entertaining, and we even got another dose of Messi magic. Leagues Cup in general was a success. I think it made people interested, and it deserves another go in 2024. Will it live up to the hype of this first edition? Who knows? But I can confidently say that I truly enjoyed year one of this new tournament, and once again, I can't wait to see what's in store for the future.